Hello everyone, and welcome to another Pyro Gaming video. Since the March update dropped and there were some changes made to the sandbox, I've had a lot of people tell me that pulse rifles in PvE are very good. Now if you're not aware, the changes to pulse rifles are a 16% damage increase for PvE, changes to rate of fire for your higher impact archetype pulse rifles, as well as higher damage to body shots when you don't crit an enemy. Now when I read this, I felt like pulse rifles weren't going to be impacted all that much. But since I've heard several people say that things like Vigilance Wing and Darkest Before are PvE beasts, quote unquote, I had to go try it for myself. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at Vigilance Wing and Darkest Before as our two test subjects, I guess you can call them. And we're going to compare them to just a base hand cannon and a base scout rifle to see how they stack up. So let's go ahead and jump right in, and we will get things started with taking a look at Vigilance Wing. So on this walker tank here, we will see the Vigilance Wing will do 56 damage per bullet with a 5-round burst that totals 280 damage per trigger pull. With the rounds that Vigilance Wing can hold, both in magazine and in reserve, you're looking at around 300, meaning that in total you have about 60 trigger pulls before you run out of ammo completely. At 280 damage per trigger pull, you're looking at a total of 16,800 damage before you completely run out of ammo. Now when we compare that to the Darkest Before pulse rifle, you can see that we do slightly less damage per bullet at 48 rounds per shot, while totaling 144 total damage per burst, or per trigger pull. When you multiply that out by the amount of rounds that the Darkest Before can hold, you get a total of 100 trigger pulls times 144 damage per trigger pull, totaling 14,400 total damage per trigger pull, about 2,000 less than Vigilance Wing. So just to recap real quick and make sure that we're all on the same page, using the walker tank as our enemy, if you fired every single round that that gun could hold, both in your magazine and in reserve, the total damage that you would have for Vigilance Wing is 16,800. The total damage for Darkest Before, if you do it the exact same way every single bullet until you are completely out of ammo, you will get 14,400. 2,400 damage less than Vigilance Wing. So now that we have our total damage output numbers, let's see how they stack up against hand cannons and scout rifles. I'm not going to use auto rifles because auto rifles to me are about like pulse rifles, so I feel like the numbers would be pretty close. But to me, scout rifles and hand cannons are the true standouts in PvE, so let's see how they stack up against an old-fashioned when you don't trigger kill clip, and with tone patrol when you don't trigger firefly. So we're looking at the base damage without any of the modifying perks that would give you a boost to damage. Base damage, let's start with the old-fashioned. So the old-fashioned has a total ammo reserve of 117 total rounds. This includes your magazine and the ammo in reserve. For each one of these 117 shots, you will do 226 damage to the legs of the walker tank, giving you a total damage output for all of your ammo of 26,442. That is 9,642 more damage than Vigilance Wing before you run out of ammo. Now let's look at the Tone Patrol Scout Rifle. Dealing 115 damage per shot when you crit the legs of the walker tank and having a total ammo capacity of around 200, you are totaling 23,000 damage to the walker tank when you go through every single one of your rounds. That is 6,200 more damage than the Vigilance Wing and almost 3,000 less than the old-fashioned hand cannon. So let's summarize all this. Vigilance Wing, for all of its ammo capacity, 16,800 damage total. Darkest Before, all of its ammo capacity, 14,400. Tone Patrol, all of its rounds totaling 23,000 damage. And the Old Fashioned, all of its rounds total, 26,442 damage. Now basically what all this means is if you are using a pulse rifle of any kind in PvE, you are hindering your abilities. You are lowering the total amount of damage that you could potentially be doing to an enemy, and you're making it harder for yourself because you're going to have to land 300 plus precision shots, whereas with the old-fashioned hand cannon you only need to land 117 precisions, and with the Tone Patrol you only need to land 200 precision shots. Now this is of course if you want your maximum damage output, because if you do want that maximum damage output, then you absolutely want to land all of the precisions that you possibly can. Another thing that you need to keep in mind if you want to run a pulse rifle, it's that you are limiting your range drastically. The damage drop-off on pulse rifles is borderline atrocious. It does not come anywhere near the damage drop-off of hand cannons or scout rifles, meaning with hand cannons and scout rifles, you're going to be able to play further back from that boss, whereas with pulse rifles, you're going to have to get right up in their face if you want that maximum damage. So all in all, the only thing that I would say pulse rifles wins this battle on against hand cannons and scout rifles is that with pulse rifles, you will be able to empty every single one of your rounds a lot quicker than you would with a hand cannon or a scout rifle. Meaning the DPS will be slightly higher, but the damage over time, or the total damage, is going to be considerably lower because you're going to run out of ammo a lot quicker. So taking all this into consideration, I personally just do not see pulse rifles as being an economically viable option for PvE. You're going to be running out of ammo constantly, and it's not going to be doing nearly the amount of damage that you could with a scout rifle or hand cannon. Drop a comment in the box below, let me know what you think of pulse rifles, and that is going to bring this video to an end. If you enjoyed it, click like. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you are already subscribed, I fucking love you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.